Hi, I'm Kate Crosby, and I'm the Exhibits Curator and Facilities Manager here at the Tri-Cities Historical Museum. Today, we're in our Marushka gallery. Now, Marushka is a screen printing company that's been in business for the last 50 years here in Grand Haven. And so this exhibit is all about the history of Marushka, how it came to be, and how it is today. Marushka was founded in 1971 by Dick and Mary Sweet and Victor and Mary Kroshik. Now, for the origin of the name. Where does Marushka come from? According to Randy Smith, current owner of Marushka, the name actually comes from a Polish nickname for Mary that Dick Sweet encountered when he was talking to a Polish butcher. The name has stuck, and so now everything that you see in here is Marushka. The company was originally designed to be a screen printing business that created decoration and public works of art for large buildings. So for example, corporations, large public structures. Some of the pieces that we have in the exhibit today actually highlight these, like the Walden, Orion, and Eldon prints. These large prints were used for oversized office and lobby spaces. Among the other things that the company did, they released these amazing booklets that were all hand printed with specific designs in miniature to be able to show different companies the offerings for both color and pattern that they would have available to them for their designs. While the company was created in 1971, they soon changed the goals and the product style that they were going for. Dick Sweet decided to expand the company's offerings by creating smaller personal size pieces that people could actually hang in their own homes, as opposed to these large pieces that were available for larger corporate customers. He started selling these at first in a small sales room located under what's currently Snug Harbor, but soon expanded to having a print shop in Spring Lake, where he and some of his employees and former students worked to create the designs of what would become Marushka's signature pieces for the 70s. These include the field prints, as well as some of the more geometric prints that feature colors predominantly from the 1970s. Most of these have natural linen. You'll see a lot of browns, oranges, blues, greens. They're all very naturally derived colors that would not look out of place in any 1970s living room. In the 1980s, Marushka had several designs that they came out with for clothing. This was a unique departure from what they had done previously. Some of these designs are printed on sailcloth, while others are printed on t-shirts, jeans, etc. 1985 was a big year for Marushka. They actually had two major changes. The first was the relocation to their current Washington Avenue address in Grand Haven. The second was the creation of Michigan Rag Company, a clothing and apparel line that worked in tandem with the Marushka designs for interior prints for decoration. After Marushka switched from larger commercial prints to smaller individual prints, designers at the company decided to start experimenting with different styles, different colors, different concepts. Some of these included things like a sew your own backpack prototype. While this didn't wind up going any further than the prototype stage, it does show a lot of the interesting creativity that was going on in the company in this time period. At the same time, some of the other experiments did have a lot more commercial success. We have trapunto, which is a style of screen printing and quilting where part of the design is actually raised so that it has a 3D effect. When Marushka opened Michigan Rag, they had a lot of different designs, styles of clothing. The origin story of Michigan Rag is actually quite an amusing one. They had a student worker who, for the summer, was at the shop and had taken home some spare, offcuts, spare pieces of fabric of teddy bears print, and he had sewn them together to create a pair of shorts. Sweet and Smith were very inspired by this and actually decided to create a clothing company, which was Michigan Rag Co. Many of the designs that they have start as these individual designers creating a pattern for the fabric. So many of the Michigan Rag designs were actually started by artists as prototypes on paper and then transitioned into screens to be able to be printed on the fabric and then made into clothing. So for example, here in the exhibit, we have this Carmen jacket. Carmen is the name of the print, and the prototype is right next to it of the original artist design for the pattern. Many of these Michigan rag pieces are actually quite iconic and are experiencing something of a resurgence today. You can see people all over, especially overseas, who are huge fans and collectors of Michigan Rag Co. The hashtag is quite populated on Instagram. And many of these pieces resell for hundreds of dollars. One of my favorite parts of Marushka has been exploring all of the whimsical prints they have on display. There are some that feature mythical creatures like the unicorn, but others that feature animals with more cartoonish and less realistic appearances, like the whale and the raccoon. So one of the amazing things about this show is actually that it was community curated. We put a call out and had over 40 people on Facebook and through email contact us to be involved in the exhibit and to have at least one of their pieces on display. And it's been an incredible experience to be able to work with all of these folks and be able to have all of their pieces on display and get to hear the stories from these people about their pieces, why they collected them, why they've kept them all these years, what makes it exciting and interesting for them. Working with Randy Smith has also been a real treat. He and his crew over at Marushka have been fantastic to work with. They have loaned us both historical and contemporary pieces, and were a huge help in terms of installation for the large screens that they allowed us to use also. The crew over at Marushka was very generous with their time, and they actually gave us a bit of a tour in terms of how the process works for screen printing. This video is going to show you how it's done.
Hi, welcome to Marushka. My name is Randy Smith, and I've been here since 1976. What I'll do is I'll go into the screen printing process and tell you how we do that.
What I'm going to show you today is how we used to produce artwork for screens to be shot. We don't do this any longer. It's a time-consuming process. But we had something called Rubylith, which is simply this red film that you would peel parts away. Where the red remained would block the light from the emulsion on the screen when the screen shooter will shoot it. So what we want to do with each design is layer by layer, depending on the amount of colors in the design, peel away the pieces that aren't needed for that color.
We have designs, probably 1,000 designs that are hand cut out of the hand cut film. They're works of art unto themselves, because you could frame it and hang it on the wall because it'll never be done again, basically.
So the process of making a screen, a good way to think about it is like a stencil. So what you're doing is you're taking this mesh screen, which is made out of nylon, and you're coating it with a photosensitive emulsion, which when exposed to UV light, it hardens. But before you expose it to UV light, you want to take a design, you want to put that on the screen, and so wherever light hits the screen where there isn't a design, it'll harden the emulsion. So then you can wash out the screen after you've exposed it to UV light for 10 minutes. And the emulsion, where there wasn't a black image on transparency, will be left soft, so it will not harden.
And what you're creating is a stencil. So after you spray out the soft part of the screen, you let it dry for a couple hours and tape up the edges, and then it's ready to print with. Well, what we have to do if we have two colors, we have what we call a rotary printer, and we can put up to 4 different colors on that screen print machine.
And the whole process starts off by getting the screens and putting them on to the rotary press that we use to print the shirts. And so we'll get the first color that we're laying down, which is normally the darker color. We'll get that screen lined up, we'll get the shirt onto the platen, and then we'll print the first color. And then after we print the first color, we'll spin the platen around and it will go under a flash dryer that dries the first layer of ink, or the first color. And then it'll come back around, and once that's done, I'll align another screen, which is the second color, and that will be attached to the rotary press. And then once that's all lined up, we'll put a second color on, and then it'll go under the the dryer again, the flash dryer, and we'll go like a third or fourth color sometimes, depending on the design. And then after that, it goes on to the conveyor belt on our dryer, which will then cure the ink so it doesn't come out in the wash, and it's permanent after that.
We've had customers for 25 years that are still buying from us. So, we've been around 50 years, and hopefully we'll be around another 50 years.
Thank you for watching. We'd love to have you stop by and see the exhibit in person. It's open until December 18th, 2021.